From under the Golden Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Capitol Report Show. I'm Bill Laird along with co-host Dave Perry, and we have a very interesting program on tap here today. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic and a lot of the sort of the focused attention dealing with a lot of things going on around us today, we have to keep in mind, David, we have an election coming up, both a primary election in June and again a general election in November. So a lot of candidates for elected public office, the state Senate, a composition of the state Senate, 50% of the members up for re-election this current election cycle, and again the House of Delegates every 2 years out there trying to get their message to the voters of their district. So we're going to have the opportunity today to talk to a few candidates seeking election to the West Virginia Legislature, and we're joined here in our opening segment by a young man who's really distinguished himself as a member of the House of Delegates representing the citizens of the 36th Delegate District. I'm sorry, Andrew, but currently seeking election to the State Senate in the 17th Senatorial District. Again, a Democrat involved in the upcoming primary election in June. Our good friend Andrew Robinson. And Andrew, welcome to the Capitol Report Show.
Well, thank you for having me, Senator. Thank you, Mr. President, I guess I should call you.
We'll accept that.
Well, let me ask you again, when we all filed for public office back in January, nobody really thought of the fact that a public health crisis such as this could really restrict the conventional ways in which everybody had always campaigned, which was pressing the flesh, going to mass gatherings, those things no longer available. What have you had to do, Andrew, as far as kind of recalibrating and reloading your campaign? I'm sure you've made some adjustments, but still trying to get your message out.
Well, I think the big problem is that we have so many other issues facing our constituents right now. That you have people that are trying to keep their business afloat, they're trying to keep their families healthy, and an election and coming up is probably the last thing on their mind.
Right.
We're just hoping that they get to the polls and they get there healthy, and then we get our economy back on track, and we get those things that seem much more important right now, and we focus on those things.
Right. Well, speaking of elections, and I know a lot of options that are available to people, certainly the conventional showing up at the polls on election day. We, a number of years ago, implemented early voting where folks could access their right to vote prior to election day. But a new phenomenon now seems to be mail-in absentee ballots, which I understand are literally exploding as far as a voter option for people during the current COVID-19 epidemic. Has that been your experience?
Yes, and I think we've had, I know you in Fayette County have had the same, and we in Kanawha County have had thousands already returned, and we're still 35 or 34 days out from the election. And with that, it's going to open up, and we're trying to see the silver lining in some of this, the virus issue, and hopefully it'll get people engaged in a different way. I know my first year in the House of Delegates, we were able to pass, or the year before I got there, was the automatic voter registration.
Yeah.
That would let everybody and automatically register them, but unfortunately that's never been implemented. So I think if we can kind of push this vote by mail and some virtual voting, such as the Secretary of State has tried to do, but not open it up to every person,
right,
those kind of things are going to get people engaged. And I think the more people that are involved in the political process, the better, no matter your party or your philosophy on things. We need more people involved and try to figure out the issues that make the state better for our constituents together, rather than just only the 10% or small percentage that comes out to vote. We get more people involved that way.
Andrew, you talked about involvement, and of course, as a representative of the people, it would appear that the governor has instituted a lot of executive orders, and in the last week or so, we read where perhaps the legislature has been left out in some of these decisions and so forth. What's your opinion of that as a legislator?
Well, I think when we go into these emergency issues, the governor has a lot of leeway to have his executive power, executive orders. And I think that, in my opinion, that power goes all the way until one of the other branches of government steps up or stands out against one of his executive orders. So that would say, you know, he gives an executive order, and then the legislature calls itself back in to challenge one of those. Now, so far, I think we've seen, we may not agree completely with his orders, but we've seen things that are trying to push West Virginia to be safer, and we'll see how his decisions go forward now as we open things back up a little bit.
There are a number of endorsements that you've received. Could you share some of those with the listening public at this time?
Well, I think, of course, I have the support of the West Virginia AFL-CIO, a lot of working people that are involved in that organization, obviously. The teachers are the ones that I've been touting this week because it's Teachers Appreciation Week as we're filming today. But those are very important to me, especially I always tell the teachers, and especially when I speak to students, that I always have to be real nice to the teachers and the education associations because I was so terrible to my teachers back when I was a student. So I'm trying to make up for that still today, 10 or 20 years after I left the classroom.
Andrew, again, you know, you're an incumbent member of the House of Delegates, but you have elected to change direction and seek election to the office of a state senate, which is, I guess, the senatorial districts consists of, you know, a number of people outside your delegate district. It's, I guess, you would be representing more people in the state senate than you otherwise would have in the House. As far as your thought processes and what went into, you know, making that decision, it's sometimes easier to seek re-election to an old office than it is election to a new office. What were your thought processes in terms of pursuing the state senate in the 17th district?
Well, those of us in Kanawha County have had the opportunity to be served by somebody that you both know pretty well, is Senator Corey Palumbo. And I think he served us very well. He's done things over the years that's really tried to push West Virginia forward, and I appreciate him staying there. I think he's been there for since his daughter was born, his first year in office, and she'll graduate high school this year. So I think we're proud to have had him. But I've always preached to people that we need to get involved. We have to be aggressive. We have to go out there and come up with ideas and plans to make West Virginia a destination rather than a departure state.
Right.
And we've gotten to that point, and since I've always told people that they have to get involved, when this opportunity came up, I had to step up and I had to get myself engaged like I preached to them and go after this office and hopefully have the opportunity to do that and push West Virginia forward myself.
Yeah. Well, again, you know, matters of, you know, again, your endorsements, the AFL-CIO, other, that's aligned with the interests of working families, in teachers, education, which has been, you know, at times fairly controversial in the last few years, as we've had, you know, some disagreements concerning policy directions, those types of things. But, you know, just in a general sense, and, you know, you don't have to drill down into great detail, but, you know, the platform, the issues, you know, what goes to the heart of your true interests and passions as a member of a legislative body? I'm sure there's issues important to you.
Well, I think West Virginia, unfortunately, and maybe the last couple of years or before that, we weren't always represented. We didn't always elect the real West Virginians. Sometimes we elected people that may sit in a large home up on the hill, and we didn't recognize or elect the people that are real West Virginians. Myself, a small business owner, I want to focus on that. I want to make sure that people that get up every morning before the sun comes up and go to work, that they have the opportunity to make West Virginia their home, provide for their families, and hopefully thrive in that environment. And those are the things that I don't believe we're focusing on right now. Our leadership in the legislature isn't focusing on that. And I think that we'll be able to get in and fight for those things that are right for our constituents, in all of them, not just the ones in the large home, the fancy car on top of the hill.
It's well said, my friend. And again, our time's running out, but one other quick question. Again, The one thing the legislature must do each and every year is pass a state budget. And it's become pretty clear that one of the real impacts and effect of the current public health crisis we're suffering through at this time is a major decline in state revenue collections, resulting in a likely budget deficit in the current fiscal year. But boy, going forward, who knows what we'll be dealing with. Are you prepared and confident to make some of the tough decisions? We may have to reinvent government here in the next few years in order to balance books. We have to have a balanced state budget. That's going to be a big challenge going forward.
Absolutely. My first year in the legislature, I came into the legislature and we were in a $500 million hole.
Yep.
And we had tough discussions. Our finance committee at that time may have lacked the leadership or the work ethic to get out and get the work done, and unfortunately that cost us $35,000 a day in special session. And I think that we're going to be in some of those similar situations.
Yeah.
So I'm prepared and ready to make those tough decisions and make sure we get it done without costing those taxpayers extra dollars on top of what we're already in the deficit.
You bet. And again, maintaining essential services is important to the citizens of West Virginia. Well, Andrew Robinson, again, really want to thank you for taking time out from your campaign to join us here today on the Capitol Report. Dave and I really appreciate that, and I wish you every success and good luck in the upcoming election.
Well, thanks for having me, Senator, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Again, joining us here today, Andrew Robinson, a Democrat candidate for election to the State Senate in the 17th Senatorial District. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break and be right back to the Capitol Report show, so stay with us, everybody.
Stay tuned. The West Virginia Capitol Report will be right back. The West Virginia Capitol Report is brought to you by the AFL-CIO of West Virginia, Cucumber & Company, online at cucumberandcompany.com, and Mark Hunt & Associates, toll free at 800-554-1280. From under the Golden Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.
Welcome back to the Capitol Report as we continue our discussion with people currently seeking election to public office in the upcoming primary election. And David, we're joined here in this segment by a person I just happen to have known. I can't think of when I didn't
All
know.
life.
I've known, we sort of grew up again, and a good person from Oak Hill, West Virginia, that a lot of folks know back our way. And Patty Hamilton, who is currently a Democrat candidate for election to the West Virginia House of Delegates in the 35th Delegate District. And again, Patty, so good to see you and welcome to the Capitol Report.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, again, you had certainly been a person who's worked hard all your life. You had, I think, recently retired, and lo and behold, you're a candidate for public office. Again, it's never too late, I know that, but again, it's good. I know your background and knowledge. You spent a lot of years at the state capitol. If you had to just summarize in a general sense, what motivated you and sort of tipped the balance in deciding to throw your hat in the ring and be a candidate for public office?
That's a good question. And as you said, I had the political background with my family and then working for elected county officials. It wasn't that far of a leap to think about. I was asked, which is always flattering. I at first thought, boy, they have hit the bottom of the barrel if they're asking me. But that gets you to thinking. And I don't want to be, it's not for a negative reason, although I have to say I am not pleased with the direction the state is going in, but that kind of sounds like a negative reason to run. A more positive reason might be, I think I offer institutional knowledge,
Yep.
which is a nice way of saying I'm older, have a lot of the history. I think institutional knowledge is important, but I am forward thinking. I don't want to go back.
Yep.
And so So that's the main reason. That there might be others who would say I just lost my mind in retirement. I'm not sure, I do feel like I can be of some assistance, and I do really know the process well. So
Yeah, certainly do. And again, to our viewers, Patty was Executive Director of the West Virginia Association of Counties for 20 years, and again, a lot of issues day to day during the regular session of the state legislature. You've testified before more
Committees?
legislative committees than I've ever attended meetings of. So again, but glad to have you as a candidate. But
Thanks.
and normally a candidate expects to conduct a campaign, which includes a lot of interaction with voters, pressing the flesh, conventional types of campaign methods. But lo and behold, a worldwide pandemic sort of blows onto the landscape. What adjustments have you had to make in trying to get your message out to the voters in light of the new normal?
it is a new normal, and I guess you could say fortunately or unfortunately, all candidates are in this together. It's not like anyone is more disadvantaged than the other. I've tried to improve my skills with social media, and we were starting at a very low benchmark, so I had nowhere to go but up there. So I'm learning new things. I was told I should be on TikTok, and I was very proud of myself that I've actually heard of TikTok. I have no idea what to do with it or how to get on it, but I at least had heard of it. So I'm learning those kinds of skills and it is an effective way to get a message across. I do little videos explaining parts of my campaign, and I've done some explaining about the absentee ballot process. My husband is my videographer. So just doing things like that, and I may start some phone calling, although I'm not really sure people want to be bothered right now. So it is very limiting. I have some yard signs, some of the traditional things, and I'll probably do a couple of pieces of direct mail, and have done some postcards that friends wrote. So that was fun. We did about 1,500 postcards. Other than that, it doesn't look like there is going to be much person-to-person or event campaigning at all, even throughout the summer and fall. So I think we all have to just get creative.
Yep.
Patty, you've mentioned some of the things that are a traditional campaign, and particularly something different this time is that we're told that probably 48% of the voters will vote an absentee ballot.
Absolutely, and that is we're all just kind of guessing. This is uncharted territory, and I've explained to people, this is not vote by mail. That's a system. That's a system of elections. This is a process we've always had. It's very old, absentee ballots. It's just the fact that we all can use it due to COVID-19. That's a medical reason that we are all using it. And you're mailing it in, but it's not actually a vote by mail system like, say, Oregon has had for 20 years. But it's really unknown. I checked this morning, just in my district alone, the 35th district, 1,111 ballots have already been returned. I think that's kind of amazing. This is just the second week it's not even a full 2 weeks that they've been out. So people are doing the process. They're applying for the ballot, they're getting the ballot, they're voting it and sending it back in. So I think you're exactly right, Dave, that by the time early voting starts, we could have half already in that are planning to vote. So.
Of course, Patty, you have a political heritage. Your dad was Senator Pat R. Hamilton.
He was.
And your husband, was a delegate, Dave Huggins. So from their involvement, what did you learn from that?
Well, you think I would have learned better. I didn't get the lesson. I was proud of both.
Or how has this helped
service. You? It has helped in the sense that I've seen it done. Like I said, this was not a leap for me to do this. I mean, I had to think about it, but it wasn't far-fetched. I borrowed on my dad's slogan. He used to use pick Pat. So my logo says Pick Patty. It's got a little, it's sort of a nod to my dad. And even before he ran for office, you all probably had to do this too. Back when we could do things at the polls, you know, I've got pictures of myself and friends with stupid hats on and sandwich board signs and handing out cards and things like that since we were kids. So I just have always been involved in the process, as has my mother. So I got it from both sides.
Certainly.
Patty, again, I think one of the good things that we've seen in politics in the last few years has been increased number of women that run for and are elected to public office. I'm not sure numerically what the count is in the House of Delegates, maybe a little less so in the state Senate. But boy, I think back in my years of service with folks, you know, Mary Pearl Compton, for example, or Vicki Douglas, some of those women, when it wasn't always common for women to be elected as members of a state legislature. But again, bringing that perspective on important women issues, you know, have you had I'm sure you've you know, sort of identify with that element. I think there are perhaps a women's caucus within the framework of the House.
There is, and that actually did enter my thinking. It's the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote.
Yeah.
I think it is a good year for women. And in 2018, my sister actually started a group called the Mountain Mamas when she realized she hadn't really realized how decreased the number of women were in the West Virginia legislature. And right now, you are exactly right, it's very low. We are at the bottom of all states in per capita representation by women. It's at something like 15%, but it was actually lower in 2018. So she started this group called Mountain Mamas for women candidates, and we're not in lockstep. We have our own campaigns. Nobody's in complete agreement, but it's just women supporting women to increase our numbers in the legislature, because the majority in West Virginia is a small majority. It's something like 51% women, but 15% representation in the legislature. So I'm all for that factor of increasing that representation.
It's so important, that perspective and diversities of opinions and views on a lot of issues. That's important.
Exactly.
Well, Patty, you know, our time is winding down. I just want to pitch you a softball and say, hey, you know, next 30 seconds, look in that camera and, you know, tell folks, you know, a couple things that are important to you in your candidacy, some things you want folks to know, what you'll bring to the process and that sort of thing.
Well, I will. Thank you. Actually, as I look into the camera, I apologize for my hair. It's a good month since it's needed a haircut, so that's the first thing. But what I think I bring, I believe I've already really covered. I think I bring institutional knowledge, plus an ability to be forward thinking. I think that is so important. I really think we can bring good from all this bad. Something good has to come from this, and I've always been a believer that good comes from bad. There will be changes that are positive for West Virginia coming from this pandemic that we've all experienced, and I'm looking forward to be a part of that. So thank you.
You bet. Well, again, you know, on behalf of Dave Perry, really thank you for your friendship over the years, and absolute the best of luck to you in the upcoming election.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break and be right back to close things out. So stay with us, everybody.
Stay tuned. The West Virginia Capitol Report will be right back. The West Virginia Capitol Report is brought to you by the AFL-CIO of West Virginia, Cucumber and Company, online at cucumberandcompany.com, and Mark Hunt and Associates, toll free at 800-554-1280. From under the Golden Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.
Welcome back to the Capitol Report Show. As we close out today's program, and again, Dave Perry, the opportunity to talked to two candidates seeking election to two separate legislative bodies. Andrew Robinson, a candidate for election to the state senate in the 17th senatorial district, and our good friend Patty Hamilton, currently seeking election to the West Virginia House of Delegates. Again, they're managing the campaign despite the pandemic. Good luck to both of them.
Obviously, campaigning has changed dramatically, Bill.
It certainly has. Again, to our viewers, we'd like to thank you all for tuning us in each week on the West Virginia Capitol Report. On behalf of co-host Dave Perry, I'm Bill Laird. Again, thanks for tuning us in. Have a good week, and goodbye, everybody.
The West Virginia Capitol Report is brought to you by the AFL-CIO of West Virginia, Cucumber and Company, online at cucumberandcompany.com, and Mark Hunt and Associates, toll free at 800-554-1280. This has been the West Virginia Capitol Report.